In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by a couple of men who are going to talk with us a little bit about a program going on tonight between 5 and 8 o'clock. Benito Baeza and I will be appearing at the McDonald's on Pole Line Road in Twin Falls, and that is for a good cause. So that helps raise money. Some of the proceeds from the sales at the restaurants, 4 different restaurants, in fact, in the area tonight, will go to help students buy back-to-school supplies. So we'll be talking with Bill Kyle and Ken Robinette coming up in just a few minutes on the program. 7 minutes after 8 o'clock, 64. Also coming up, Raul Labrador made an appearance yesterday on NBC's Meet the Press, going into some hostile territory there, of course, with Chuck Todd. He was talking about illegal immigration. We'll get to that a little later in the show today. But right off the top, there's no way. There's a joke in politics that says that there are people who suck all of the air out of the room. In 2010, I remember working at a small radio station in Delaware. Actually, we were probably one of the top 2 talk stations in the state, but you understand the state is 3 counties with a population of about 900,000, so it was a small radio station. And we had a U.S. Senate candidate by the name of Christine O'Donnell, and she had just won a primary, and this was before her handlers made a terribly bad decision on a campaign, television campaign called I Am Not a Witch. So it looked at the time like she could well win the U.S. Senate election in that state after the primary. A friend of mine was actually working for the state's congressional candidate, the fellow who was running for U.S. House, who was just as attractive a candidate from a conservative perspective, but couldn't get any attention because O'Donnell was getting all of the attention from all the people in the media, in fact, not just in Delaware, but nationwide. And my friend came in to talk with me on the air one day and said, yeah, she's sucking all of the air out of the room. And that's an analogy, of course, that people make, or a metaphor for what's happening in politics when some big personality gets all of the coverage, such as Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, over the weekend, didn't disappoint once more. He's been getting a lot of coverage. By now, if you were living under a rock over the weekend, you may have missed this, but otherwise, simply, I don't think there's, even if you're not interested in politics, and the old line is, politics is interested in you, even if you're not interested, most of you have heard that he apparently said something very nasty about John McCain. Albeit, you actually have to go through the entire comment before you get to the bottom of what the man was actually talking about. Now, McCain and Trump have been feuding for the last couple of weeks. McCain made the comment that all the people who are supporting Donald Trump are the crazies, and he's been bringing them out, which, if you're John McCain and you're a Republican, calling some of your fellow Republicans crazies really endears you to the mainstream media, but not necessarily to people within the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, of course, no favorite as well in the Republican establishment, but I'd like you to take a listen to what Trump actually said on Saturday at a candidates forum, and then why don't you be your own judge? Because we're being told that Trump is denigrating McCain's time as a prisoner of war in his military service, and I think that perhaps we have to have a stand-back moment and say, okay, what is it exactly that Trump had to say? Well, here you go. Take a listen, and then you be the judge.
I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay?
Now, I was listening to that, and it struck me that Trump's point is if he hadn't been captured, we may have never even heard of John McCain. It's not like he was saying, well, there's no big deal about being a prisoner of war. See, once again, there's a context here that some folks in media really don't want you to pay attention to. Well, Frank Luntz is among those who are offended in media. He is a pollster, but he also was one of the most common talking heads on television you're going to find. And Luntz made an appearance yesterday on ABC and offered his thoughts as to why Trump is getting so much traction with the public, even though, according to Luntz, he's got a potty mouth.
The number 2 attribute is someone who says what they mean and means what they say, and Trump does do that. And his language is very powerful for the disaffected voter. But you still have to ask the question, is this the kind of civility? Is this the kind of decency?
All right, Frank.
Is this the kind of language that builds a good electoral process?
And of course, you are all out there saying, yes, the first thing we really need in these difficult times that we live in is a candidate that would be civil. And then we'll worry about someone who tells us the truth and is blunt later on. I mean, right, that's exactly what you say when it comes down to you want someone to be polite and politically correct. And Frank Luntz just said that. And you've got most of the pundit class, even those on the right now, saying the same thing. Oh, well, he says these things and they're not elegant. He needs to say things elegantly. Because when you go into the coffee shop in the morning and you're sitting down talking with friends about, well, the ball game the night before where your team lost and played poorly, you don't sit there and say things inelegantly. You say, oh, but only if they had perhaps used the cleanup hitter. You don't go into that. You say, those guys really stunk last night. Donald Trump has brought that kind of language to politics. And it is just galling these people, the inside established types, to the point where they can't contain themselves. Are you familiar with Cheryl Atkinson? She used to work at CBS News. She decided that she could no longer put up with all of the liberal spin that goes on not only on the air, but in the office. And she left, walked away, and started writing books about her experiences. And it only infuriates her former fellow travelers because she has left the farm, so to speak. And she is writing about the situation with Trump over the weekend and how the media actually reported it. One day I was driving down the road last week and I heard a story on a radio show, and it was about the Trump situation. And they played the soundbite of him talking about illegal immigrants, but they always chop it off just before he says, and some of them I assume are good people. Because then that loses the context. It's like, well, he wasn't really saying that they're all rapists or that they're all criminals. He is saying some of them, and here's the point. Out of all of those people who've come across the border in our experience over the last 20 or 30 years, are they all innocents? No. We all know that there are some people. We've got a case in San Francisco that's rather obvious right now. So Trump is right to that extent. 8:13, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. I felt strongly enough about this. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not a Donald Trump supporter. The only reason I'm happy that he's in this campaign and he is saying these things and that he is doing these things is that I hope it smokes out some of his fellow Republicans and they start talking in much the same way and stop pussyfooting around and, trying to dance around the daisies and just get to the point and say what people really believe and what people really think. And the longer Trump stays in this campaign, then the more he is likely to draw these people out. I dropped into the studios yesterday morning. Didn't need to. I came in. I recorded a video. It's about 14 minutes long. It's up on our website. And if you have access to our Top Story archives, our video archives, you can see it there. But I was talking about this piece from Cheryl Atkinson. She says, an article in the Washington Post is headline, Trump slams McCain for being captured in Vietnam. Okay. The lead article sentence, the article's lead sentence states, quote, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump slammed Senator John McCain, a decorated Vietnam War veteran, on Saturday by saying McCain was not a war hero because he was captured by the North Vietnamese. And then she asks, is it accurate? In fact, Trump's actual quote is the opposite of what is presented in the Post first sentence. Number one, the Post did not provide context at the outset disclosing that the two have been feuding. Number two, the Post is accurate in reporting that Trump initially said McCain is not a war hero, but then Trump immediately modified his statement saying four times that McCain is a war hero. And then she breaks it down here, giving you all of that exchange in print. Number three, did Trump say McCain is not a war hero because he was captured? No, not in the exchanges represented in the Post. Number four, is the Post characterization an accident? She says, of course not. The Washington Post, by the way, known among conservatives in that area as Pravda on the Potomac, might have been able to get away stating that Trump implied McCain was not a war hero because McCain was captured, but even that would have been a subjective interpretation since Trump had actually stated the opposite. It's true that Trump stated one time that McCain is not a war hero, but Trump stated four times that McCain is a war hero, and that was not accurately characterized in the article. The news media, she writes, and I want you to remember this. This is critical. The news media, she writes, has a responsibility to do its best work to report accurately and fairly, even when reporters find a candidate and or his positions to be personally distasteful. In other words, we don't like Donald Trump. You shouldn't like Donald Trump. Therefore, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that you don't like him. And the truth be danged. I should point out as well, John McCain came home from Vietnam, and certainly his conduct while he was a prisoner of war, quite respectable. Came home and got elected to Congress, the House of Representatives first, before being elected to the Senate, and was allied quite closely with Ronald Reagan during the 1980s. Since that time, John McCain, his politics have spun much more to the left, and he's been headed down that path on a great many issues. You recall the media loved him until he ran against their hero Barack Obama, then they hated McCain. Now they love McCain, though, because McCain is attacking someone they don't like. And when that somebody responds, then the media pounces even again. McCain, a story today. This comes from a website called Polistic. It turns out that John McCain was working along with the Democrats to use the IRS, Internal Revenue Service. There were emails, and they actually detail these, May 1st, 2013. John McCain being involved with Lois Lerner at the IRS to essentially use that government organization to hammer the Tea Party. Folks, he was part of the Gang of Eight that was looking to provide amnesty for illegal immigrants. All I'm telling you is, he was a hero. Is he today? No. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, I'm going to give you, speaking of an analogy, right after the Battle of Saratoga, which was the first really big win for the Americans in the Revolutionary War, there was a young officer who had been told not to get involved with the battle, but he saw things were going poorly, and he rushed into the battle and he saved the day. He was badly wounded. He was shot in one of his legs. His name was Benedict Arnold. After that battle, immediately after the Battle of Saratoga, Benedict Arnold was the greatest hero of the American Revolution. And that stayed with him for some time. Later, when he felt that he didn't get his due from the Continental Congress or the Army, Arnold decided instead to throw in his lot with the British. Today, Benedict Arnold is known, his name is synonymous with treason. I am not saying John McCain is anywhere near as treasonous or traitorous as Benedict Arnold. I wouldn't even begin to see a correlation. But I'm just telling you, you can be a hero one day, and then you can have some actions on another day that are anything but heroic. So there you have it. My thoughts on this entire situation this morning. I've got some guests coming up from the McDonald's restaurants here in the area. Bill Kyle and Ken Robinette going to be joining us in studio for just a few minutes, talking about a very special event that's designed to help some young children in need in our area. That's coming up. I hope you can stick around. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. 65, 8:20 this morning.